On today's Witch Word of the Day, for no reason whatsoever, I decided to go with the word Gorgon. I think it goes along with this book. I think there's Gorgons mentioned.
Maybe.
I was eventually going to talk about Medusa, but then they did a pretty good job in the book, so I went with Gorgons just to be a little more simple. But Gorgons first showed up in Greek literature. The word Gorgon actually comes from the word Gorgos, which means grim or dreadful. Or it also comes from the word garjana, which means a guttural sound similar to the growling of a beast. So this is hinted that this was possibly one of the first onomatopoeias, Kevin. I know how you love your onomatopoeias.
So, Gorgon! Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, of course, it mentions here some of the most famous Gorgons are Stheno, Uriel, and Medusa, who I think we're going to see a little bit in this book today.
Oh, and goodness. Okay.
You haven't even read that?
Wait, what are you doing with the book?
So he has the confidence to finish the story.
Hear now the words of the witches.
This is Kevin, and welcome to Words of the Witches, the Charmed podcast that will guide you through the lesser-known published material in the Charmed universe and decide how it fits into the grand narrative of the TV series. Well, hello, welcome to Words of the Witches, episode 70. Is it 73 or 74? I don't remember. But it's in the 70s, and I'm Kevin, your resident Charmed resource.
I'm Sean, and I just love comic books.
And today we are welcoming a lovely guest, Nugent. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
It's going to be great. You are a big Charmed fan, and you've read pretty much everything Charmed out there, and you watch everything.
Yes, I have. All of it. I consume all of it. So.
Mm-hmm. And this was the last thing for you to read.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Oh,
I was saying before to Sean that this was they were marketing this as canon, right? And so this was my last. I was saving this as my last piece of canonical Charmed media, right? So I always had in the back of my mind, I have still one more Charmed story waiting in the wings for me, right? So it's not officially over. And then when you asked me to come on this podcast, I was like, you know what? Now's the time. I have to pull the trigger and do it.
Yeah. So for now we're all caught up. Except well Sean still has to read season 10. So we're gonna get to that soon.
But I love that this is the first time all three of us have ever read this book. I'm not the only Charmed newbie this time, so we all get to talk about it together. The power of three.
Power of three.
So how did you discover the show of Charmed?
So that's a really good question. I was 8 years old, and my mother was. I walked into my mother's room, and she had the show on. And it was the episode The Fourth Sister, season 1. I said, "What's this?" And she said, "Oh, it's a show about witches." And growing up, I loved all things witches, like Wizard of Oz, Bewitched. I was like a weird little kid, right? Like where most kids are watching Rugrats, I'm watching Nick at Night. And I was obsessed with all of those things. And I just sat down and I watched it with her. And from 8 until 16, I never missed an episode. And that's how I discovered Charmed.
Love it. Great. Are you ready for this book? We've got lots to cover.
We have a lot to talk about.
Okay, I'm ready.
So this book is Let Gorgons Be Gorgons. Oh, word of the day. Oh. Great. This book was written by Paul Ruditis, and this was originally released in 4 separate parts. So it must have been in pieces. So it started on September 29th, 2015, and then released as a whole on February 2nd, 2016, taking place between season 9 and 10 of the comics. Yes. And I didn't mention this last time, but these 2 ebooks, they were supposed to come out in print on paperback on April 9th, 2019. And then they never were. I had them pre-ordered, and I was very mad that they never came out.
Wow. It's messed up.
Same.
Yeah. And we'll get into that because there's supposed to be more books that came out after, which we'll talk about too. But yeah, so let's get into this. The summary of this book, it says, when Piper, Phoebe, and Paige undo a spell that turned a local politician to stone, they enlist the help of their sister Prue, confined on the magical nexus, not realizing the powerful magic behind the hex. As attacks on innocents mount, the Charmed Ones learn that the most heinous of mythological creatures, a Gorgon, is to blame. Freed from the underground tomb, Medusa joins her sisters in a crusade to avenge womankind, turning those who cross her to stone forever. At the same time, dark magic seems to be undoing all of Phoebe's good works, distracting her from the impending battle with the Gorgons. With time running out, will the sisters be able to defeat Medusa and restore the innocents to life?
All right. Chapter 1, The Bay Mirror. Mika's freaking out because 5 of the couples Phoebe married in her PR stunt have broken up and now thinks it could be a PR nightmare. Rachel and Jal, a work couple, started laughing. They show Phoebe the picture of a statue that appeared of a local Congressman Ward, an unfavorable Republican. Phoebe immediately got suspicious about it and zoomed in on the picture. A vision. Phoebe saw Ward in his office. He was conversing with someone. It seemed innocent enough until Ward was suddenly turned to stone. Phoebe rushes out of the office and calls for Paige to orb her home.
And isn't that fun that Mika is back from the comics? You get her like her little
I noticed that.
Cunny chum,
Yeah.
you know, great.
And I remember feeling like the PR stunt in the comics, like it seemed kind of random. So at least it kind of went somewhere in this book.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to chapter 2. Okay. Paige orbs her and her sisters to the Presidio, where the statue is on display. They watch as the statue is loaded onto a truck. As the truck and police begin to drive off, Paige orbs the statue to a spot near them. Piper suggests they take the statue to Prue, since she needed a project. Paige pats the statue, saying that they will help him, even though they hate him. Prue is working on a puzzle and keeps wanting Cole to help her, but he is disinterested. Prue says they help her concentrate. The sisters orb in with the statue. Phoebe tells Prue of her vision, and she agrees to work on the issue. Prue woes about how she is stuck in the Nexus and can't do things, like get a pizza. Paige orbs out and comes back with a pizza. Cole is anxious to investigate the caves, and Piper tells him to take Leo. He goes. So there was a moment that I really liked in this particular chapter that I made note of, and it was 2 moments actually. I really liked when Paige told Prue that, you know, anything that you need, we're here for you, because it showed them starting to grow a relationship and a connection, like she has with her other sisters. So I thought that was a really cool moment for the growth of their relationship, and I also liked when Paige went out to get the pizza, and it was just Piper, Prue, and Phoebe alone, and they kind of like gave each other a hug. It was like a throwback to the earlier seasons, and it felt right for their character.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, Paul does know the characters very well.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, chapter 3. It's Cole and Leo in the ice cave. Remember the ice caves with the Titans and stuff from Oh My Goddess? This is back in that place.
Wow.
Apparently Cole can still shimmer, so that's cool. But they're looking for the remaining Titans, which means there's more in here. Gasp. Okay. So Cole and Leo bond over their constant adjustments in the universe, which I enjoyed that too, because they both had their rigmarole, moving around and being different things and states of death and stuff. So fun. And they come across the place where Kronos and Demetrius were released. So those little broken out places, and they go down another path to see if there's more there. Then it cuts to these sisters, Steno and Uriel, and they walk below Athens. Steno magically changes her clothes to something more comfortable. So they're in like a glamour right now as people, like these beautiful women in crazy. They keep changing their outfits and their shoes, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're cool." And then we learn that they made this trek every year to Hades for thousands of years to try to reawaken their other sister, which is Medusa. And this time they come to her tomb, and they're like, okay, it's going to be different this year. And they finally resurrect her. They use all the strongest magic that currently rests within womanhood. So they're like, yes, they're tapping into the Charmed One's power pretty much right now. And like, yes. And then the sisters shed their human form and take on their Gorgon form, little snake people. They start the ritual, and then the snakes come out, dive into the ground, and then they come out of the tomb and go into Medusa's head and like, haha, I am alive.
Yay!
Yay.
So I'm really curious because it talks about when they're in their disguise as like looking like human, you can hear the snakes still because they're still there.
Right.
So I'd love to like be at lunch with them and you just hear snakes. And
Like,
you're
what's this random
what
hiss
is
scene?
that?
That would freak me out.
Yeah. Are you coming on to me, ma'am? All right, chapter 4. 4 sisters chant, the power of 3 will set you free and turn the congressman back to flesh. The charmed ones felt dizzy and exhausted, but Prue was peachy. I'm fine. I have all the power I need right here. Ward rebuked the scene for being a feminist plot to overthrow the government. Sounds accurate. Piper freezes him. Cole and Leo appear. They say no new Titans were released, so the attack wasn't them. Phoebe's phone rings. It's Mika! 7 of Phoebe's couples broke up in the last week. This does concern Phoebes. Paige had completed an amnesia potion for Ward. Phoebe goes to a quiet room to call for Coop, but Cole is there. He hopes he and Phoebe are okay. Coop arrives and he and Cole shake hands. The two of them talk about Phoebe's advice column using air supply references. Odd. Phoebe begins to be embarrassed and nervous by Coop and Cole's budding relationship. I don't want to say friendship. I want to hint at sexy things happening.
Yeah.
The men salute with their penises before Coop beams away with Phoebe.
Beautiful.
I did note here, I like that Prue references the gender swap spell.
Yes.
In this chapter.
Me too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked, I noted too, this is the first time that they say the power of 3 spelled together as all 4 of them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really cool moment to have in the books. And so, yeah, you have all 4 sisters saying their signature spell at the same time. And I don't think that happens even in season 10 or,
Nope.
I think this is the only time it happens in all of the literature.
That's true.
All right, so it's my turn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, chapter 5. Phoebe and Coop beam to the residence of the recently divorcing couple she married. They find Bree Jordan alone and tell her they can assist with matters of the heart. Bree says that the past weekend, something just hit them both, and all the annoyances they had with each other intensified. Bree recalls about when she first wrote in to ask Phoebe. Phoebe cannot get a vision of empathic Reed. Phoebe and Coop decide to check on another couple. When they arrive at the door of this other couple, Phoebe is overwhelmed with empathic emotion.
Yep.
Chapter 6. Not too big a chapter here, but it's pretty much Medusa and her sisters discuss her reawakening. She's like, I'm awake now. What's up? And Medusa takes her human form too. And then Steno and Uriel says a spell to get her up to speed with the world she missed. So it's pretty much doing like the 5th element, where she's like absorbing all of the world stuff. And she's like, okay, now I understand today, even though I don't really, because I question everything else, but whatever.
I wish there was a line where she's like, okay, I get it, but what the fuck is a Teletubby?
Yeah, right.
Congressman is orbed away after the memory potion is used. Prue and Piper get into a brief fight over Prue taking over a body that wasn't hers and the possible ramifications. It's almost like Kevin has hinted this will be a theme in season 10.
Maybe.
Maybe. Coop beams in with an unconscious Phoebe. She collapsed after visiting one of the couples. Paige heals Phoebe, and Phoebe is convinced something is attacking her couples. Phoebe's empathy combined with her personal connection to the couples is weakening her magic. The sisters decide to split duties and tackle the problems. Prue checks the Book of Shadows page on the Titans. Paige wonders if Prue could make an easy portal to and from the Nexus so she won't have to keep orbing everybody. Obviously, this will be a big plot element and go somewhere within the context of this book. Piper, Paige, and Prue have all felt something a little off in the Nexus ever since Prue amplified her powers.
I wonder what that could be. Hint, hint. Okay, so Chapter 8. Coop and Phoebe beam to the office, and they have sexy banter as couples do. Phoebe begins research on the couple she married, and she is concerned on her Romeo and Juliet wedding in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Mika drops in and shows Phoebe a headline that calls her out for being a love guru that destroys love. Mika suggests Phoebe has an interview with the blogger who posted it, and then Phoebe refuses.
She's like, absolutely not.
I don't know about you two, but I got really excited when we were going to explore Romeo and Juliet again. Like, that would have been
Me
so
too.
epic to see this.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting how Phoebe was concerned that, you know, I don't think I'm jumping ahead here, but I think it was in this chapter where she was worried that if they got, you know, divorced or they broke up, that because the marriage is what broke the curse and they got married in this group wedding, right? That
With the
she was
psycho-
like worried that,
yeah,
that all the other couples would be cursed. And I was kind of hoping that's where it was going to go, because that's some really cool lore. You know, it's like there's a lot to play with there. So if Paul Rudice is listening, that should be a fun spin-off one day.
Yeah, especially because I remember we thought Romeo and Juliet was like a random thread in the comics, like that didn't go anywhere. So this would have been like, oh, this is what you were setting up. That's so cool. But instead it's just kind of mentioned.
Right. And maybe some history on Shakespeare too, because he had that cursed quill or whatever. What's his story, you know?
Yeah.
All right, Chapter 9. It starts with a spell. Paige performs a spell. This might be the end of the spell. We don't know, but it starts with, oh, rhyme time.
Should we try a spell? Why not? Let's try a spell.
In the wind, I sing this rhyme. Bring death before me, before my time.
You've really got to lay off the rhyming, Prue.
Wonderful. Witty, but wordy.
I did the rhyme. I will do the time. Good night.
Around the world, but please don't hex us, connects this portal with the Nexus. So this is her trying to create a portal between the Nexus where Prue lives and their house. So Paige opens the door to the portal that she has, but then it seems to have led to the Nexus in the basement of the manor. I have a note about that in canonical, but yeah, it's just like, oh, it goes to the basement. Same. I don't want to go here. I should have specified which Nexus. So, and then Piper tells her to give it a rest for now and help figure out who may have turned the congressman to stone. Cole and Leo appear in the attic and say that they dropped off a fairy, a dwarf, and a leprechaun at Prue's to combine their magic into an all-purpose potion. So we know from Oh My Goddess that that's what was needed to take Paige out of the stone state in there. So they're like, oh, we can just combine the magic again. Ha ha ha. Medusa and her sisters eat chocolate and peanut butter as they plan their revenge.
So random.
Like, here, Medusa, eat this. Isn't it good? Don't you love it? The modern world. Here you go. Their mission is to protect those who are innocent from being violated, like Medusa was. Ooh, we'll learn more about that later. Steno and Uriel tell Medusa that they are here in San Francisco to connect with the Charmed Ones. Oh, they know them. They protect the innocent too, and it is their power that was tapped into to bring Medusa back. Steno wants Medusa to make an example of a media mogul who is an oppressor of women. They go. It's like, yeah, let's go to our next target.
There was, I believe it was this chapter. It offended me a little bit, and it wasn't even about like the story of Charmed, but one of the sisters says like, we need to start writing better rhymes or something like that, or how come our spells are never good? And I was like, that's rude, Paul. You just said everybody else who wrote spells better than you were bad spells. So all the lore of Charmed.
Yeah, I know. Oh.
Yeah.
Tisk tisk.
He ate something spicy before he wrote this one.
Maybe.
All right, chapter 10. The sisters take Medusa to the man, Von Ramsey. Medusa was uncertain about the plan, but she obliged, and she approached Ramsey and turned him to stone. Phoebe arrives at the manor and joins Piper, Paige, and Leo in the attic. Phoebe video chats with Prue on her laptop. The gang tries to narrow down what could be responsible for the stone people. Phoebe throws out Medusa, but Leo thinks it is unlikely. Coop arrives and confirms Romeo and Juliet are still in love. This obviously matters. Henry informs Paige of a new statue of Von Ramsey.
Oh no.
Oh no.
All right, chapter 11. Paige orbs the sisters to the new statue with one of Prue's recent potions. Piper freezes everyone in the park. Piper pours the potion over the statue, and the three sisters recite a spell. Rhyme time.
I did the rhyme. I will do the time. Good night.
To free a man stopped in his tracks, add fairy dust, a dash of luck, and the pick of an axe.
See, not a great spell, Paul. Just saying.
Not great, Paul.
Both this and their backup power of 3 will set you free spell failed. Paige orbs them and the statue of Prue. I'm getting tongue-tied right now. What's going on? Paige orbs them and the statue to Prue. They want her to make a duplicate statue of Vaughn as a decoy. Prue doesn't think her magic will extend outside of the Nexus, but she duplicates it anyway. They bring the duplicate statue back to the park, and Piper unfreezes the scene. The statue melts, and the people start to cheer.
Yeah, they think it's some kind of like PR stunt again.
Yeah.
Something. I just gotta tell you, Nugent, I love when You're in New York came out there.
Oh, did you heard it? You heard the New York accent?
It gave me fun. No, it gives me really fun memories because it reminds me of my mom a lot.
Does it?
Because my mom is also an Italian New Yorker, or was, I should say.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So it's nice to get those feels. So thank you.
Be sure to bring it out more.
Yeah. All right. Chapter 12. Coop, Leo, and Cole cater to Phoebe's list of couples. So they're going over these broken, divorcee, fighty couples. Leo gathers ingredients for a spell that Cole wants to try, leaving Coop and Cole to wait together and make out or whatever. Oh.
Yes. Let's salute our penises.
In the conservatory, the men move plants and furniture so that there would be 6 unobstructed windows for the 6 couples on Phoebe's list to appear. And Leo's back now with the stuff. Cole performs the spell, and Coop uses his ring to activate the magic. The couples appear in the windows, and the men watch and wait. This is scrying again. Captomancy. There you go.
I love it when you talk dirty.
You're welcome.
Oh, I forgot. I was going to wear it today for this show, and I totally forgot. It's in the other room. I went to a witchy store on Friday, and they had a necklace I bought. It's an Athame necklace.
Cool. That is really cool.
Yeah. At Disneyland yesterday, I was stabbing my friends with it in line.
You went to Disneyland? I'm jealous.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it like the one Ames wore? Because Ames had a little Athame necklace with little skulls on it.
Oh.
I have a replica of it.
It doesn't have skulls. I'll have to look. Chapter 13. Senno is perturbed that no one reported on Ramsey yet, and their efforts are going unnoticed. Senno and Uriel take Medusa to a building that has statues of her on it. They tell her she's famous in modern times. The building is owned by a woman who runs a website that shames women for falling in love with married men. Once inside, Senno and Uriel take Gorgon form, and man pulls out a gun. Medusa, too, takes Gorgon form to protect her sisters.
Yeah.
Things are heating up. It's heating up.
Heating up.
Yeah.
Very public monsteriness.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. They're a bunch of freaks. Right in public doing it. Oh my god.
We don't call them freaks. That's insensitive. We call them weirdos.
That's right. They're weird. All right, I'm sorry. I take it back. They're a bunch of weirdos doing it in public. Ugh.
Yeah.
So anyway, so chapter 14. At the Nexus, Prue and the sisters are still trying to free Ramsey from being stoned. The fairy and the dwarf come back, and Paige brings a pot of gold with the leprechauns. From the leprechauns, excuse me. Prue asks them to get this done. The fairy sprinkles some dust, Paige throws the leprechaun gold, and Frank, the dwarf, axes it, and it fails. Phoebe gets a call from Elise. Elise tells Phoebe there's a dozen more statues at the offices of Carolyn Barnes. Phoebe has a visceral reaction to that name because she recognizes her as the bitch spouting anti-women propaganda. Elise tells her there's more and sends a video to Phoebe of the Gorgon attack. Phoebe says, looks like Medusa is back on the list. And she is.
Oh, yeah. I was so glad that the spell or the stone thing failed, because I don't think Paige could use leprechaun gold. I feel like you need the leprechaun there to activate the magic.
Definitely. I think you definitely do.
Yeah.
Although I will say, going back, I'm not going to lie. I did. This is a shout out to Paul. I will say I do like that last rhyme time, that spell. I like that spell. I didn't think it was one of the worst. The leprechaun, gold, axe, that whole bit. So okay. I don't know, I was a fan of that. I was a fan of that spell. So
okay,
part of me hoped it worked.
Okay. Chapter 15. Coop and Cole watch the windows and awkwardly talk about Phoebe some more. Leo says, Bailey, the nerdy librarian from magic school, will help watch the kids with Henry. And they're like, yeah, magic school teachers are always willing to put in their time for us. I'm like, all right. They focus on the windows and find a lesbian couple in a fight. And what I love about this, too, because in that issue, there was a lesbian couple being married. Remember I pointed it out?
Oh, yeah.
So it's really cool that the continuity is there. But they're fighting in there. They want a divorce. And then they go, Cole and them look at this window and they're like, I can replay this. Let's rewind. So they replay the sequences of events and they're like, yeah, 1 minute they're cuddling, laying down, and then they're like fighting like crazy. And in the replay, Cole sees a dark figure, some humanoid shadow thing. What is it? Who is it? Coop beams them to the couple's home, and it's like outside the window, and Coop picks up some trampled flowers and then scans the ring with it. So I guess this ring does things we didn't know it could do. And then Coop senses the presence of someone he knows. When he scans it, he's like, oh, I think I feel it. I know who this person is, and they're not after Phoebe at all. They're after me. Gasp.
This part was really exciting to me because I thought it was cool that we get to learn more about Coop. Like, we really don't know much about him from the comics and the show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. I get the really long one. I see what you did, Kevin. You gave yourself all the short ones, and you put me on all the long ones. That's fine.
I was actually really glad you got this one because it's exactly what you're talking about. You can give us the whole lore of our Medusa girl. So there you
go. Okay, good. Yeah, because I knew the lore about her before I was reading this, and they kept, I feel like, skirting around what happened in the lore, and this chapter finally tells us straightforward what happened. Yeah. So, chapter 16, Medusa and her sisters watch Fox News looking for the attack. The sisters are waiting for Medusa to reach the potential of her full power. Medusa fears what her sisters will do and second guesses their motives. Zeno aims to incite fear to get the world to do what they want, and she is confident the Charmed Ones will try to stop them. The Charmed Ones try to remember their Greek history. Frank scoffs at them for relying on rumors to fight, and is surprised they've survived under those methods. I really liked Frank. He was an asshole.
The shade. It was great.
Yeah. The library is open, Frank. Let's see. Frank tells them that once the elders created gods to defeat the Titans, the gods created their own madness, and the elders just said, oops, and ran away until it affected them. And the elders wrote the history books to make them look good, not to cater to what actually happened. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's ever happened in real life, that somebody's written history to make themselves look better?
Oh my gosh.
Frank, who happens to have a doctorate, tells the tale. The Gorgons started as witches, the most powerful witches of their time. They were sent to Greece to protect the innocent in secret. They never got the credit because both witches and women were socially inferior. They were granted powers. Medusa was the most powerful, but, and it's a big but, she had a mortal life. Steno and Uriel were immortal, but they were weaker. Medusa full on fell in love with Poseidon. Like, she was writing like Medusa Poseidon in her notebook. She had Poseidon posters in her room. So he was
Hurts.
like, "Oh, that's cool. I'm not really into you, Medi, but I'm into rape. So I'm just gonna rape you here in Athena's temple." What the fuck? So Athena got really mad at Medusa. How dare you be raped in my temple? So I'm gonna turn you into a Gorgon. So this is Athena's doing. So Medusa was said to be like a very beautiful woman, and Athena's the one who actually turned her into this. And Athena's responsible for giving Medusa the eyes that turn people to stone. And then Athena ordered her death because she was like kind of pissy that Medusa still had magic. And when the sisters went after Athena, so Uriel and Steno, Athena cursed them as well. How dare you care about your sister's well-being? So Prue says we still have to stop them. So Paige says she's definitely not vanquishing them. They've been punished enough. So yeah, when I first heard that story of Medusa, I was like, that is so fucked up. And that is so mirrored in our society today with the way like women are kind of shamed when they're a victim. So
It's
I
horrible.
like that he put this in the story.
Right, and it's because we don't always get that take on Medusa ever. We always get like her as the monster, the thing to defeat, and really,
Right.
it's tragic. So it's nice that we have a media that showcases that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, chapter 17. Piper burst into Hallowell's, and it looked a wreck. Customers and employees were getting ill. Fearing how this fiasco could ruin her, Piper freezes everyone in the restaurant. Paige heals everyone, going from person to person. Piper unfreezes them, and they all feel fine. Thankfully, no one attempted to sue, but Hallowell's will have to close until it's figured out.
Oh my gosh, though, can you imagine going around to every single person in there having to heal them?
It almost seems as annoying as going to every single person's cell phone and deleting a
Deleting.
video of a demon.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, this again? Yeah.
Paige does not get paid enough. That's all I can say. Paige does
Right.
not
Nope.
get paid enough.
So, chapter 18, Phoebe is having an over-the-phone interview with that stupid blogger that's trying to ruin her name, which was forcibly set up by Mika because she went behind Phoebe's back and it's like, "Hey, Elise, can we do this?" She's like, "Yeah, you betcha." And so Phoebe was forced to do it anyway. Phoebe held back her frustration over the interviewer because he was clearly trying to spin the story against her every chance he got and asking the really, questions that he would try to twist and turn. But she responded very well and very professionally to protect the paper. Afterward, Phoebe is forced to write a new article because she's like, now I have to address what I just talked about on the interview so that he doesn't come at me some more. So she's like, I'm going to address the divorce happenings and the advice that I'd give. So, but she has to do it because that's almost time to be past the deadline. Coop beams in and tells Phoebe that the one breaking up her couples is Daffod, a fallen Cupid. I know Sean told me that he hates this name, Daffod.
I took it as like, is it supposed to be like David, but Daffod? I don't know. It's a weird name.
When I first thought about, I don't know if you ever watched the show Little Britain.
Mm-mm.
Do you know
No.
Little Britain? Okay, it was a show that had Matt Lucas on it and some other guy, I forget his name, but there's a character called Daffod in that, and
Okay.
he's like, he's like, I'm the only gay in the village. And he's going on about how he's the only gay, and every time there's another gay thing ever, he's like, no, you can't be gay because I'm the only gay in the village, and he gets mad if there's anybody else. And so that's what I thought of because his name is Daffod in that.
So if he ever gets sick, would he be Daffod ill?
Yeah. Daffodil. But yeah, so Daffod is a fallen Cupid, and he trained Coop and Kama. Remember her, the beautiful other Cupid? Yeah.
Mhm.
And he was really good at the job. He trained them. He brought them up into the Cupiddom. But it's a big but. Daffod used his powers, his love powers, to force a woman to fall in love with him when she was destined for someone else. Evil. Gasp. Horrible. Cupids generally are not encouraged to fall in love themselves. It happens, but it's very rare, as in this Cupid Phoebe thing, or Coop Phoebe thing. So, but yeah, most of the time, Cupids just are content making other people fall in love, and that gives them a sustained feeling of love in their lifetime. Coop says once a Cupid uses the power to force love, it can't be undone. And she's like, but isn't that what you do? And Coop is like, no, we do not create love. We encourage love that is already there. We persuade and we help suggest and we help, make love flourish that's already there. Coop reported Daffod to the proper authorities of Cupiddom, I guess. And he was stripped of his ring, and he actually he's like, oh my gosh, he must blame me because the woman he loved, her name was Marcia, and she could not fall in love with anybody else because the person she was supposed to fall in love with is not on her radar anymore, and all she thinks about is him, and she can't find Daffod, so now she has to live a life of solitude and die. Because the only way he could be breaking these couples apart is with a ring. How did he get a ring? ?
Mm-hmm. Which, this kind of sucks for Marcia, because is it worse that she was forced to fall in love, or worse that she was forced to fall in love and now she can never see this guy again and has to live her life as a spinstress?
Yeah.
Marcia.
I just saw her on RuPaul. Chapter 19. Paige reads Phoebe's morning column and was so impressed and inspired by love. Piper discovered that ambrosia was in all of her food last night, which can be deadly to mortals. Upon calling the restaurant, Piper learns that a weird health inspector interaction happened, and there was no recollection of him ever leaving. Piper wonders if the culprit is... Do I have to say it? Do I have to say his name? Daffod. And if Cupids are linked to the time of Eros, if he is connected to the Gorgons, Prue calls and asks them to come to her place.
Chapter 20. At Cupid's temple, Kama confirms with Coop that a ring was stolen, the Eros ring. But only magic from the time of Eros could even get into the vault. Without the Eros ring, no more Cupid rings can be made. Kama tells Coop the only way to separate Daffod from the ring is to have him drink from the river Styx. Is it Styx or Styx?
Styx.
Okay, I'm horrible with names. When I used to read Harry Potter, I used to call Hermione or Hermione. Can't go by me.
Did you ever see Club Dread? Her name was Penelope, and he's like, "Oh, Penelope."
That would be me. I don't say people's names when I meet them. I'm like, "Hey, man, what's up?" I'm my name is Nugent, so I'm the worst offender, right? I have the hardest name to pronounce. So yeah, okay. From the river Styx, we'll go back. Kama tells Coop the only way to separate Daffod from the ring is to have him drink from the river Styx, from the crystal goblet in the vault. At Prue's, the sisters are surrounded by statues of victims. Prue has learned that in order to pull info from the Nexus, she has to tap into all of her power, meaning good and demonic alike. Prue felt the intention of the Gorgons, but they were conflicted. She has also been getting reads on the victims. Prue senses the next victim, a young male. Paige touches Prue for coordinates and orbs there. Prue realizes that she just sent them to a track meet, and this is going to be another very public attack.
Chapter 21. Medusa's eyes have turned to her human brown color, which means she's at full power. But now she knows that if she sees her in the eye, she's good. Her sisters are going to know that she's at full power, and she does not want them to know that she's at full power. They head out on their next target. Since the sisters are there too, Piper freezes everyone on this track field, before most can see the Gorgons, which is crazy. She just freezes a ton of people. Her powers have been growing like insanely amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, but you know what? I'm going to stay here in case anybody walks in here and goes, witch! And like
Not her again.
Because that's exactly what happens. She's like, I learned my lesson. In the future, I freeze everybody, and then somebody walks in and ruins it. So I'm going to be here in case somebody does. So Paige and Phoebe go after the Gorgons, and they go to find their target. They're innocent, and they were already turned to stone. You're too late. Piper then joins Phoebe and Paige. She's like, I think I made it so that if anybody walks in, they'll be automatically frozen. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's new. And Paige talks to the Gorgons. Gaze averted. She's like, I'm not going to look at your eyes, but I want to talk to you. And they do have a really nice, sweet conversation. They're starting to bond. Medusa says that Paige can look up since she can control when her power is active. Like, she has to actually activate the stone gaze. It won't just happen because she looks at you. So that's nice. And as a sign of trust, Paige meets her. They lock eyes, and she was fine. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm not stone. It's beautiful. And she's like, see? And Medusa's like, yeah, see, you can trust me. And then she looks at her, and she's like, wait a minute! You are Athena! I know you're Athena. She's like, no, I'm not Athena. I just had her powers for a very brief, itty-bitty time. Don't be mad. Yeah, she's like, I got powers as a goddess. She's like, nope, Athena, I can smell you. I can taste you. So Paige was struck by the stone gaze. She put the stony gaze on Paige, but she did not turn to stone right away. She's like, I'm feeling a little stiff, but I'm going to orb these Gorgons away. I'm going to orb us out of here. I don't know how I have the power to do this when I'm struck by stony gaze, but here I go.
I almost thought Rose McGowan was on the podcast for a second from the way you were doing her voice.
Oh my gosh.
All right, chapter 22. Cole acts as Coop's guide in the underworld. Cole says the River Styx moves locations constantly, and the only way to find it is to get lost. I really like this little rule he put here, because this is very charmed. Like, it's a creative way to because it's the river that attracts the lost souls, so you have to get lost to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Soon they come upon Cerberus. They sneak past him into a cave where the river was. Cole runs towards Cerberus and distracts him head-on. The tempt and teleport trick. Cerberus then runs towards Coop, who did the same trick. They leave with a bottle full of Styx water, and they gingerly salute their penises.
Mm-hmm. Job well done.
I must have missed that part of the book. I'm disappointed. 23, chapter 23. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. When the Charmed Ones orbed into Prue's castle, Paige was still flesh, but she could barely move. They wonder why Paige hasn't turned to full stone. Prue thinks that maybe they, being the Gorgons, were a precursor to the power of three, and this is why their magic affects Paige differently. The Gorgons arrive in a cell in Alcatraz, and Medusa is still livid by the taste of Athena and Paige. Medusa was causing thunder outside, smashing the glass of a window, which Uriel turned to butterflies. Theno turned the air around her into ice. Their active witch powers are back. The Gorgons took on their human glamours, more determined than ever. They wonder how powerful they could be if they took the Charmed One's magic too. It's getting exciting now.
Yeah. Something's happening finally.
Chapter 24. Coop and Cole, after touching penises, are at a retirement community waiting to lure Daffod there. Daffod beams in, demanding to know where Marsha is. Daffod explains that a woman came to him and offered the ring in exchange for keeping the family occupied. And he was excited when he learned that it would hurt Coop. He's like, yes, I am in. Coop demanded to know why he forced Marsha to feel a natural emotion. It's like, you knew she was destined for someone else. Why did you make her fall in love with you? He's like, I was in love. Duh. That's the only reason. And then he's like, oh, okay. Coop, believing that David clearly isn't right in the head, he allows Cole to grab. He's like, fine, Cole, let's do it your way. And so Cole puts David in a chokehold before teleporting to Cupid's temple. And then Coop sits around for a while. He's like, oh, I'm just going to contemplate this. I trusted you. Let me sit here. Okay, now I'll go. Like,
I think I know what he would have been thinking, though. He was probably thinking, you know what? If Daffod was a pickle, he would be a daffodil. Chapter 25. The sisters join forces with a power of 3 spell plus the Nexus, and it allows Paige to move freely again. Prue thinks it works because Paige was charmed, and she realizes that the Gorgons likely tapped into their magic. Suddenly, the Gorgon
was so confusing.
It was.
I'm like, okay, sure.
That works, I guess. We gotta wrap this up quick, so that has to work, right? Suddenly, the Gorgon sisters, as women, appear in Prue's living room. An epic witch battle ensues. Lightning, ice, couches turn to marbles. Prue creates a wall to protect them from the stony gaze. Piper can't freeze or splody them. Paige put up an orb shield, but Uriel changed it to clear and it popped. Senno egged Medusa on to get her to kill Paige so that they can take their magic. Prue went no holds barred and started manipulating the environment around the Gorgons, contorting a box around them, but they break out. Beat for beat. Phoebe gets a text from Coop. Phoebe levitates and looks directly at Medusa, placing her hands around the snakes. She fills Medusa's mind with images of the good things the Charmed Ones have done over the years. Phoebe talks with Senno. They stop people from seeing them as monsters. Phoebe tells Medusa about how Senno partnered with Daffodil, a man who forced a woman to love him. With regret, Medusa turns her sisters to stone.
Yeah, so they're mad. She's like, Medusa's like, this is the very thing we're fighting against, who we're fighting, and you go ahead and team up with one?
Yeah.
It's like, that's pure betrayal.
Yeah. And I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but since we're on the chapter, I wanted to talk about it. I hate this ending. It's just so quick, and then I turn them to stone. But because I have my rule where I like to try to give a positive or a suggestion, how cool would it have been if Paige was able to kind of tap into her connection to Athena and write the curse on the sisters, thus
I know
excusing Athena for actions.
See?
Ooh, that would have been good. That would have been,
yeah, right?
Oh, that would have been hot. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Retcon. Before we move on, I want to note something here that I really appreciated how Phoebe made a nod to the family tree, because in the Charm fandom, right, outside of the context of the book, right, that prop has a lot of mistakes on it. That is known in the Charm fandom. So I appreciated how Phoebe made a joke how she was going to burn the family tree because it has so many inaccuracies. It would kind of, if we're considering this canon, the inaccuracies are canon, not just someone on the prop team who didn't know their shit. Yes. So I really like that.
So when is Piper's birthday?
It's like when Hela knocks over the fake Infinity Gauntlet that was in Odin's. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
I keep doing this over and over again.
Fake.
Fake.
Yeah.
All right, so we're moving on to the epilogue now, the finale, the end. Phoebe talks with Coop after he puts the kids to bed. He had successfully dealt with Daffod, and Medusa turned all the people that were stoned back to life. Her sisters will stay stoned for a while, though, until she can figure out how to help them. Phoebe teases Coop about how a Cupid probably finds all women sexy, and he corrects her by saying, no, all people, and that Cupids are very open. So we'll get back to that.
I know.
And
I was like,
right? that was
I was very happy.
I was like, me too. I was like, huh, Coop. Okay.
I'm like, it's official. It's canon now.
It's canon now. It's canon now.
Yep.
I was like, okay, Coop is officially Coop is open. Okay, so all right, there is a whole spin-off series there. Okay.
Yep.
And then the couple embraces with love. The end.
Aww.
Yay.
So I do have a few little notes about this. There's some other spells, other rhyme times that were not like given spells, but we know that happened in the book. So they have the resurrection spell that Steno and Uriel cast to resurrect Medusa in their like their tongue, whatever language.
Their parcel
and then
tongue.
yes, oh yes.
Ooh.
And then there's the one that Leo, Coop, and Cole did on the windows, and it included bay leaves, marigold, belladonna, mugwort, damiana, and the glass. But final thoughts, Nugent, go first. What were your overall thoughts on this book?
Okay, so my overall I'll be so. Right, like anything charmed related, right? Like you could throw a triquetra on it, and I'll be like, "Yes, this is the best thing in the world." Taking my fanboy hat off and coming at it as like a filmmaker and as a writer, that's what I do for a living, right? And looking at it objectively as a body of work. Okay, I loved the lore that was built, right? How you might have these precursor to charm ones. They were kind of like their own version of charm. You kind of expanded the lore of Cupid. With that said, okay, I felt that there were some of the writing was a little bit choppy at times, and I didn't particularly love how Phoebe was being constantly made like the butt of the jokes. Like early Phoebe was a little bit irresponsible, right? But she's grown a lot since then, right, as a character. And even Paige, who is sometimes irresponsible, magic, free-spirited, she's grown a lot too. But I felt like there was a lot of like, for example, I couldn't tell you the exact chapter, but like, it was when Prue was talking about how she was tapping into the good and evil, right? And Piper gave her a look, and she was like, don't make me call you Phoebe now. And Phoebe's like, hey, I was insulted, but that wasn't the first time it was done. Like it happened a couple times throughout the book, and I was like, why are we constantly making Phoebe the butt of the jokes? You know what I mean? Like Phoebe don't lose more of my puzzle pieces, and it just kind of felt like out of character for the characters to be doing that to Phoebe, because she's not that character anymore. She's grown a lot, and I didn't really love that, to be honest with you. And this was like a weird note that I had, but it just stuck with me, right? I felt like a lot of the characters were shrugging a lot. Like Phoebe shrugged, Piper shrugged. Yeah, it was like Cole shrugged. Everybody was shrugging, and I'm like, why are we shrugging so much?
I accept that. Yes.
So I was kind of like, I could have used a different adjective here, right? Or a verb or whatever the hell it is. I don't fucking know. I've been out of school for how many years? So yeah, whatever. We could have done different actions. And then just a technical note, I had picked up a lot of grammatical errors throughout the book that I felt like it was maybe like pushed to publication like real fast, and they didn't really redline it the way they should have. And also too, like you had said earlier, this book came out right in 4 parts. And I remember when it came out in 4 parts, you can kind of, and this though I actually didn't mind, you can kind of tell where the parts began and ended, right? Because there was at times a lot of recap or exposition. So I didn't dislike that, because, if you were a fan coming in and maybe you didn't read the comics and you just kind of picked up the book, yes, I feel like it could stand alone on as, for the most part, as its own book. But I think at times it read a little choppy, so it could have flowed a little bit better. But I do understand why, because again, it was 4 different parts, and you kind of had to, catch people up if they came into it a little later.
All right, Sean.
I think I need to start with a disclaimer. I do respect Paul Ruditis. I do like the lore and the writing that he's brought to Charmed. With that being said, I hated this book. I think it had some really cool aspects to it. I think it just was like a typical sequel where, like, I see it as a sequel to the first ebook, but I think he tried to just do too much. Like, linking the Medusa sisters, the Gorgons, to the Charmed ones was such a cool idea to see that mirrored and see like the evil version in a way. And then taking that further and linking them to Coop and his story, I was like really into that. I thought that was really cool. I wanted to learn more about Coop. But like the Gorgon sisters' whole plot about turning people into statue to try to like show who they are, it just never really gelled with me. It never seemed like a good plan. And I don't know, like throwing in the Romeo and Juliet along with the Coop story, along with Daffodil, along with the Gorgons, it was just like nothing really came together for me. It just felt like it was a lot of ideas that maybe should have been separated into two books. I would have loved to see, like, instead of this being about the Charmed ones, be more about Coop and his past, and somehow he's linked to the Gorgon sisters, because like they said they all came from the same era of time. So it would have been cool if like the whole plot was about Coop, and then we kind of see that, you know, the husbands bring danger to the sisters as well, and the sisters are there for them as much as the husbands are there for the sisters. I would have liked that more.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I'm gonna be kind of on par with you because my final thoughts. I liked that the overlooked Medusa story was told. That was a really nice thing to see. And I do love the added Cupid mythos because I always want to know more about that. And the Coop and Cole interactions were really fun, really cool to see. But I thought this novel was way too long for one. These books have a format and a general length. This just seemed really long. It was very slow paced. I felt like it was going in circles a lot, like you were saying, like they had to keep going back to retrace their steps, and like lots of weird like sidetracks that didn't go anywhere. It took forever to get to the point of things, so I was annoyed a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't find either A or B storylines like truly captivating. Like they didn't give me like I got like hints of interest, but not enough to keep me like really invested. So that's right.
I want to add one more point, and I think this is more of a something special, like as a fan, right? And I think Kevin, you might appreciate this. So we were at 90s Con, right? And Shannon she was running late, and she came on stage after everyone else was introduced, and she pulled Rose and Holly into a hug. In chapter 7, Phoebe leaves, and she's left there. Prue is left there with Paige and Piper, and Prue pulls them into a hug. And I noticed that, and I was like, wait, it was like a full circle moment, because that's literally what happened. The first time that the three of them were together in any Charmed convention. So as a fan, and I'm sure you can agree with me, to witness that in real life and then read it. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. Incredible.
And I will say the sisterhood in this was really cool to see. And I loved the end battle because it's the first time they all fought together.
Yes.
And I was really happy with that because they know Prue can't leave, but they met her at Prue's area and they had that battle. I do appreciate that.
Right. Because I think in season 9, yes, when the big battle was happening at the end, and again, not to spoil anything, but even in season 10, for the most part, you don't really see the sisters working together, all 4 of them, from start to finish, right? Like figuring out what's going on, solving it, defeating the enemy. This is I think the only real time that they're without their extended family. It's the 4 of them working together as a group, as sisters, first and foremost, fighting an enemy and defeating them. So it was I really appreciated that about this story. And I think those little moments, they kind of outweighed the negative for me. And as a fan, I really appreciated seeing that. Like I said, like this was my
Of course.
last piece of like canon charmed story to read. So even though the story wasn't perfect, it was the perfect way to wrap it up for me as a fan to see that.
Nice.
Yeah. And I will say, I think Paul did a really great job, at least through season 9 and through the books, of having kind of an awkward tension between Prue and Paige, because Paige kind of took Prue's place. And this book did a really good job of naturally like bringing them together in how similar they are. So,
Yeah.
like you said, Kevin, I think he is really good at exploring their relationships as sisters. So that's what stuck out to me, is the
Exactly.
Paige and Prue.
Yeah, both of these ebooks really develop that Prue and Paige dynamic and really see them coming together and finding where they fit together. And that's another really great thing.
Yeah.
All right. Next is Put That in My Canonical Hat.
Canonical.
So this is the canonical section. I have many things. I have so many things. But I'll let Nugent go first, because I'm sure he has some of the ones I have.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Like, for me personally, and I kind of, you guys might disagree with me, right? I consider in my head canon, right, everything season 9, the 2 books in between season 10 as canon. I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, honestly, though, there are things that could contradict, but I'm one of those fans that I love to fill in the blanks, right? Like, I love to
try to
world
make it
build
work.
in my try and make it work, and like world build in my own mind and come up with explanations for things. The thing that really stuck out to me, and you mentioned it earlier, that I'm having trouble kind of fitting into a box and figuring out, is the Nexus under the house. The Nexus under the house is gone. Okay,
it's gone.
Something wicked this way goes, destroyed the Nexus. Okay,
they banished the Suxen. It's gone.
Gone. Okay. So that part stuck out to me canon wise. I still gotta figure out how I could kind of make that make sense. And then also the Cole shimmering thing. And I went back and I was like, because as I'm reading it, I'm like, it's reading like he's shimmering, but they keep using the word faded. So is that what we're calling his teleportation power from season 7, when you kind of see him do those gray swirl things? Right? Or is he shimmering? So that was, because I kept imagining him shimmering too. That's kind of how it read. So those are the 2 things that kind of really, really stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm. And and he should have a teleportation power of sorts, since he is bequeathed to Prue to be her messenger. So it makes sense he would have an ability like that. But just what is that ability really?
Right. And another thing too, I remember too, was when Cole and Leo go to the ice cave, right, where Meta and Demetrius were freed. Supposedly now there's a tunnel to lead to other Titans, which it doesn't contradict anything per se, but it does beg the question: why, when Phoebe and Paige went there at the end of season 5, didn't they discover this tunnel with more Titans frozen? So those were the things that stuck out to me.
Okay, Sean, do you have anything?
I did not. I do not know Charmed the way you 2 do.
Okay, let me look at my notes one by one here. Okay. Things that I noticed. Like, Leo says the source will probably be back because that's a power that doesn't stay vanquished, which I'm like, yes, because the comics alluded to the fact that they finally vanquished the source for good. I'm like, no, you can't do that. It's one of the things that always comes back. So I'm glad that they bring it back here that says, yeah, it's probably going to come back.
Yeah.
That made me happy. Cole calls out the elders for making everybody else do their dirty work, and then Leo defends them. And that, I'm like, I would have thought that Leo would have done being an elder ass kisser by now. Like, especially since he's mortal. I'm like, really? You're still on this? But, I mean, I guess it's a Leo thing. Phoebe mentions that the Nexus, Prue's Nexus, gets great reception, which I'm like, this is the same thing she said about the underworld multiple times in the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great reception down here.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Yeah. Down there with Billy.
And this is something that Sean brought up. Prue hints at the gender swap spell, so I was happy about that. There is confirmation that the government knows about them and magic, so that goes back to the hocus pocus option. Okay, here's one. Phoebe grows weaker when her couples are broken up, which is exactly what happened to the Cupid in Heartbreak City. The same way. And also the fact that Daphne was a fallen Cupid makes me wonder if Drazi was another fallen Cupid.
In my head canon, I always thought that, to be honest with you. I always thought
Yeah.
that in my head canon, in my like extended world.
Because they call him a demon of hate, but he
Right.
knows how to use the ring, you know. So that would be cool to explore some more. The name Vaughn Ramsey, I'm like, is this a shout out to Greg Vaughn and Wes Ramsey? Is this a combination of those?
Oh,
I hope so.
that's fun.
I hope so.
Yeah. So I had that. And then just some in-book stuff. Because Paige keeps going to get pizzas, but I'm surprised Prue just can't conjure up pizzas.
True.
Yeah, I never thought about that. She can conjure up everything else.
Yeah, like why can't she just conjure pizzas? She could conjure a pizza boy, a delivery boy. I don't know. But anyway,
Well, I know why. Because when they leave, they'll be hungry again because the pizza will melt in their
There you
stomach.
go.
Maybe
There you
it's
go.
not real pizza. It's like bangerang. It's like yeah.
Use your imagination,
Sure.
Peter.
Yeah.
Prue wants authentic New York pizza, okay? She's sending
Mhm.
Paige to the city to get authentic New York pizza. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Prue knows what's up.
Yeah.
She
There you
has a
go.
refined palate.
Also, there's a spot where Cole looks at Coop and Phoebe. And he's like, "Oh, this could have been my life," and he thinks about his baby with Phoebe, and if it was born. And I'm like, only it wasn't yours and Phoebe's baby. It was the seer and the source, essentially using Phoebe as a surrogate. So it wasn't even yours to begin with. So it wouldn't be like this.
Something else that I remember too, and this again, I think it was similar in the last ebook where Paige called herself a stepsister as opposed to a
Yeah.
half sister. I think it said something along the lines of Piper was shocked that Paige's healing spell worked, and it's not a spell; it's her powers. So I think that was just a mistake on the editor's part. Something else I noticed too, and this is very nitpicky, but I noticed that they interchanged the word spell and potion a lot. That when they went to go use a potion, they were saying the spell.
Sure.
I've seen other witch shows do that, but Charmed never did. Charmed had a very distinct potions, spells,
Exactly.
that's it. So that was something else that stuck out to me that wasn't very Charmed lore-esque. But
Okay.
I mean, that's just being nitpicky.
I love it though. All right. Next is tips for future white lighters.
Oh, really just messengers? Guides? Think of us as guardian angels for good witches.
Tips for future white lighters.
I was out being a force of good in the universe.
So this is our moral of the story. Nugent, what's your moral?
Moral of the story is, well, I mean, obviously you have the obvious, right? Women's rights, treating women as equal. Like a sub-moral that maybe I noticed too was just because you look one way on the outside doesn't mean that's who you are on the inside. I think Paige even says something to the effect of, just because, or Phoebe, you look like monsters on the outside, but doesn't mean you have to be on the inside. And so I think that, and also there's a gray area when it comes to grief and anger, and not letting your anger consume you, being better than your anger, being better than your grief. And again, those were just like kind of sub-moral plots that I noticed, aside from the obvious one, which is, women's rights, treating women as equal, and making sure we do better by people. And also too, not victim blaming, right? Because Medusa was essentially victim blamed.
Mm-hmm.
It was not her fault what happened. And so there definitely was some heavy, meatier moral plot points in this book that I noticed.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the women's rights element, just like you. That was very interesting. The one that really stuck out to me was a conversation. I don't remember exactly what sister said it, but they said something about maybe Medusa's come back to enact revenge, and Prue corrects her and says, or maybe the sisters brought Medusa back and they're forcing her to do this. So that really kind of struck me as unconscious bias, because that's something that I just did on Once Upon a Cult with Satine Phoenix. I like blamed everything on the man, and it turned out it was probably her who kind of made an uneasy, not great environment. So I just think that's a good lesson for everybody to try to like overcome your unconscious bias and try to get the whole story. Just like Nugent said, just like, victim blaming and stuff like that. Try to research yourself and make sure that if you are going to throw hate somewhere, make sure it's pointed the right direction.
Yeah. Cool. Mine is, and this is easier said than done because I'm bad at this, but don't compromise your own values and wants just to appease others. A lot of times you get into those situations where everyone is doing one thing, and you're like, okay, I'll go with it. Peer pressure. Try to stay strong to what you actually want to do and what you believe in.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so now we're at our ranking. So we have Magically Delicious, Pretty Witchin', A Sorcerer's Apprentice, Disenchanting, or Vanquishable. What do you give it?
Okay, so I go first. I'm put on the spot. Okay, I would have given it Disenchanting, but because of the Prue and Paige dynamic, because of the '90s con element, right, and seeing what we saw with them, those moments kind of like hold a special place for me now as a fan, reading about them in the book. So I'm gonna give it a Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Okay.
I will start off by saying this. There were points in the book where I literally got a headache because it was so directionless. I was like, where is this going? So, I mean, I'll repeat. I did like the elements of Coop. I liked the mirror of the Gorgon sisters versus the Charmed one. So there were good aspects to this book, but I am giving it a Disenchanting because I did not like it. But I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it.
Yeah. For me, obviously, there were some good things happening in this book, and I was gonna give it a Vanquishable actually because I wasn't invested in the story. I didn't find much going on, but because we talked about the sisters and stuff, I'm gonna raise it up to Disenchanting because that's the one thing that is really emotional and really beautiful and really well done. So I'm gonna settle there.
Look at that.
Wow.
You tried to be you tried to make sure you weren't mean, Nugent, and we were meaner than you. So.
Yeah.
Side note, and I'm not sure if you want to edit this out, but this is just me telling you guys. I don't know if any Kevin, I don't think you watched the reboot, right? Like, is that like sacrilege to say on here? Funny enough, the reboot, I watched it. I watched it start to finish.
Yeah.
I know, sacrilegious. And they had a Medusa episode, right? And
I heard about that, yeah.
It was literally like somebody on that writing team knew they're Charmed and did their research, or they just went to the Wikipedia page, because the episode, the plot was very, very much so pulled from this book. And you cannot convince me otherwise. Like, man. even one of the lines that one of the, I think it's Macy, says is almost directly pulled from this book. So I was like, someone is either a super Charm fan on that writing staff, or they just went to the Wikipedia page and was like, pull.
Yeah. Okay. They stole
Wow.
it. Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. And they're like, no one knows because nobody read these books.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, they totally didn't think anybody would read these books. And they just went and like lifted the plot.
Crazy. All right. Well, cool. So that's the end of that. Except, we have a little bonus thing to cover here. So after this book was supposed to be another book called Social Medium. And Social Medium is an unpublished book that was supposed to be released January 24th, 2017. And then it was pushed back to January 23rd, 2018. And then was completely put on hold indefinitely. And I guess not really canceled, but kind of canceled. And I'm going to read the description of what that book was going to be. It says, when Phoebe begins to have recurring nightmares of being followed down a dark and unfamiliar street, Piper and Paige try to help her understand whether these dreams are just dreams or a premonition warning her of danger soon to come. After inserting her waking conscience into her dream, Phoebe soon finds that she has no control over its outcome because it's not her dream. It's not even a dream. It's real, and it's about to go down. Working together with their sister Prue and the reformed ex-demon Cole, who sworn to protect her and the magic of the Nexus, the Halliwells find themselves in a race to save the life of a witch with a special ability to communicate with the dead. With sinister forces at work, will the sisters be able to save this witch before dream becomes reality? Yeah. And this is going to take place between season 9 and 10 as well. Pat Shannon is going to be the author. But also, thanks to Nugent, we have tracked down the first chapter of this unreleased book. Yes.
So I have to give shout out to my writing partner Anthony. His fiance Anna is she lives in the UK, and when they had come out with and they were doing this book in parts, if you bought part 4, they in the US they had this chapter at the end of it, right? You can't get the book in parts anymore here. You only can get the single condensed version, and you can't get this chapter. So I was like, I need this chapter. I was like, I need it. So Anna's in the UK, and they're still selling parts in parts. And I was like, you have to buy it. You have to send it to me. And she was like, okay. And we were doing everything we could to get our hands on this. And sure enough, we did. And then I sent it to you, Kevin, and the rest is history.
It's amazing. I'm so grateful because, we need it. And so we have a little hint that most people don't get. So we're going to summarize this first chapter for the peoples.
Cool.
Bonus!
Bonus! So chapter 1 of Social Medium. Are you ready? So Phoebe is running down the street, feeling like she's being followed. She has feelings of dread and danger. She's looking back. She's feeling things on her neck. She hears creepy laughter. And she's like, and it's like, heh, 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 heh. I know. And she's like, get away from me. And then she runs into this woman with bags, and she's like, oh God, I'm so sorry I crashed into you. And she tries to lift up the woman, and the lady is like, heh, 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 and like smiles at her creepily. She's like, oh my God. And so the woman just grabs her arm and won't let go, and then a man grabs her and holds a knife to her neck, and both of them go heh heh heh. They're just both being really creepy. So then Phoebe screams, she's like, blood curdling, and she awakes in bed with Coop consoling her. And this is a recurring dream that she's been having for the last couple of nights. She's like, oh my gosh, it's getting crazy. Daffod is mentioned. So we got him. It's like, remember, we're past this now. And Phoebe is unsure if these are dreams or premonitions. And then it cuts to Piper. She's at the manor having a bath. She's like, I got the mood set. It's going to be warm and wonderful. And right when she gets into the bath, a phone call just out of reach happens. She's like, are you kidding me? So she answers it, and it's Phoebe telling her about her dreams and how concerned she is. She mentions her astral premonition with the Sandman. She doesn't call it an astral premonition, but I know what it is. So I said astral premonition. Phoebe tells Piper she wants to try a spell that will give her full control of her dreams, and to get Paige to meet at the manor. Have you ever been in control of your dreams?
Like once, twice, maybe. Like lucid dreaming.
Yeah. I had it one time, and it was actually during a Charmed dream.
Oh, of course.
I've had a few charm dreams. Like I've dreamt some amazing episodes. Like I seriously. Like I've had a couple of like charm dreams.
I remember it was a dream I met. It was before I met anybody, but they came to me. Shannon Doherty and Henry Combs came to me and like, hello. I'm like, wah! And then, but then they turned into demons and started chasing me down a hill. And I was like, no. And that's when I said, wake up at the moon. And then I woke up.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Only you.
Anyway, yeah, sidetrack there. Sorry.
We love sidetrack.
Yeah. So that night, they go to the manor. Phoebe gets in position, and she's like laying in circle of candles, and Piper and Paige read the spell in the Book of Shadows for lucid dreaming. Rhyme time! We get a rhyme time in chapter 1! Whoa! It says, beyond the veil of light and dream, the sleeper walks aware. Remember what your eyes shall glean when you escape dream's snare. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Piper and Paige watch as pink smoke lifts Phoebe into the air. And you see Phoebe just like sleeping. She's like stirring and she's like in distress a little bit. And then all of a sudden she jolts awake and she stares at her sisters. Her eyes are completely white, no pupils. She's like, who are you? And then it just screams. I'm like, spooky. This scared me. But yeah, very intense. I was in it.
It was an intense chapter. It was a great way to start a novel. Like, I want more now after reading that.
It's just so sad. And Pat Shand was the author. I just wish we got these books.
I do think it's funny going from a queer writer with Paul Ruditis to a straight writer with Pat Shand, because suddenly Piper's naked in the bathtub and she gets out and she's covered in soap. And I was like, yes, mama, sexy time.
It is funny. Pat Shand is a straight guy, but he's also very liberal and very inclusive. So, but yeah, it's funny, the shift.
No, I'll tweet Pat Shand sometimes. He's probably like, oh my God, Nugent, that crazy Charm fan. But he's a fellow Long Islander, actually. And I would love, Pat, if you listen to this, you should just leak these books. Like, go like leak them. You know what I mean? I want to see a social medium leak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I have like Charm blue balls now.
Right, and he's got his independent company. He can start doing. The only thing is, because Charmed is licensed, he probably can't. That's the only reason. If it was his own original work,
names.
Yeah.
Gifted.
Change the yeah, gifted.
Yeah. But I'm excited to talk with him and see what he says about these bonuses stuff. So yeah, that's happening soon. Cool. And you're from Long Island. My mom was from Long Island. She was from Brentwood.
No way.
Brentwood,
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Do you ever come here? Like, do you come out to Long Island at all?
No, I've never been, which is crazy because
God.
there was I could have grown up there. There was a chance I could have grown up there because my grandparents' house, they were going to give it to my mom. And because my dad was here, they said no. But I was this close.
Come out to visit and I'll show you around. And yeah, I think you'll like it.
That'd be great.
Yes, 100%.
I'm so glad you got to join us. Thank you for bringing your love and light and amazingness.
Thank you for having me.
Tell people where they can follow you if you want them to find you on the social medias.
Yes, you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram at NJC3, but the 3 is written out because I'm the third. I'm like Nugent the third, in like real life. So at NJC3, at Nugent Cantilino on Twitter. And follow me. And I post car selfies a lot. So and like random rants I'll post. So
oh my gosh, I used to have a YouTube series called Random Rants.
No way, really?
They're still on there. It's just me as like a weird awkward high schooler, like random rant, whatever.
I love random rants. Random rants are the best.
Yeah, it's too fun.
Yeah, too fun. But no, yeah, I had a great time. It's awesome, guys.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, Sean, you're up.
Cool. You could find me on Once Upon a Cult, where we just did a Dungeons and Dragons cult. You can find me on Marvelous Galaxy of Disney with your weekly Marvel, Star Wars, Disney news. You can find my book, if you like witchy things, Witch's Brew, A Dream of Waking, on Amazon. Or my new book series, Gifted, about 3 sisters, Petunia, Penny, and Patty.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Yeah, you can find Sean and I also on the podcast Solving for X. We're currently in season 4 of the X-Men animated series from '92. Yeah. Ooh.
I love X-Men. Oh my god.
Yeah, we have fun on that show too. It's great. Or you can follow this podcast at Words of the Witches, all places. except for Twitter, where it's a little bit different. It's Words of Witches. Be sure to rate and review on Spotify and Apple if you're listening on those. And if you want some merch, go to wordsofthewitches.threadless.com. We have some really cool new designs. I have a potion one on there right now with Sean's animated face in a potion bottle. And I have a new one called Back at the Manor. I have that on there as well with a manor. Yeah, it's fun. So check them out. It's good. We're going to be starting season 10 very, very soon. Oh.
That's my favorite. Season 10, I'll be honest with you, season 10 out of all
so
the seasons is one of my absolute favorites. Like, hands down.
It's so good. It's so good. I cannot wait for Sean.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's phenomenal.
It's
phenomenal.
And that just reminded me of my grandma. My grandma would always say, it's phenomenal, because all my New York family, all my Italian New York family, it's you. It's great. Well, thanks for listening to Spell Worders. We'll see you soon. Your destiny still awaits. Bye! Aww.